Today's tutorial is to paint this beautiful vase of flowers and greenery on this old stool where the paint is flaking off. I think it looks really, really cool. So here's the outline that I drew on my iPad. So when I traced it onto paper, I didn't do every single line. I just got lazy and I thought, well, when I paint it, I'll look at my reference photo and figure out what I'm supposed to do. I also didn't do all the different lines here, the outlines of the different areas where the paint's flaking off. I'm just going to wing it. So let's get started. For the green stool here, I've mixed up some phthalo green with a little bit of yellow ochre. And it's pretty close to that green. It's close enough. So for the stool, I'm just going to paint the entire stool except for there's a couple of areas that are kind of whitish. So I'm going to try to avoid that. If I can't avoid it, I can lift it later. And I did not mix up enough color. I'm known for that. Let's see if this is close enough. It's close enough. It's a little darker. Put a little bit more of the yellow ochre in there. It's not an exact match, but that's okay. It'll be close enough when I start adding all the dark for where the paint has flaked off. Now I'm going to start doing a lot of the yellow here. There's a lot of yellow in the vase here. There's some yellow on this side of that stem of leaves. There's some little splotches of yellow here, little yellow blooms. So I'm going to get started on that. This is just a lemon yellow. Use whatever cool yellow you have, or just any yellow that you've got. And this stem here, got a couple of stems here that look like they have some little yellow little flowers here and there. I'm just going to just dot some yellow here and there to represent those flowers. That's why I didn't do the outline exactly, because I don't need to. I can make it, I can suggest some flowers and it will look like a stem with flowers. There's little pieces of yellow kind of all throughout this. The yellow I put down here, I've got a damp brush and I'm just going to kind of smooth that out. Let it just spread wherever it wants to go. In the center of these flowers, it doesn't really show that they're yellow. It shows kind of orangey. But I'm going to go ahead and start with some yellow there. Looks like a little yellowish over here. More yellow over here. Okay, I'm going to let this dry. Okay, it's all dry. Now I'm going to work on the dark areas of the stool. So I've mixed up some neutral tint with some burnt umber to create kind of this dark brownish color. And I've got my reference photo here, and of course I did my outline, but I didn't quite get every little detail, so I'm just going to kind of wing it here, just looking at my reference photo and just dropping in some of this darker paint here. Just kind of just tapping it around. It's pretty dark under here. Kind of doing a dry brush where there's not much paint on the brush and just kind of scraping it across the paper. The paper has some texture, so it won't cover everything, but it'll give it a wood texture. See, when I turn it on the side, it kind of skips across the paper. I didn't think I would follow my drawing there. It's just easier to do the dry brush and let it go where it wants to go. Letting some of that green come through. It'll look like flaked paint. Scraping it across. And that looks like wood texture there, just by accident. Okay, let's let that dry. Now that it's dry, I'm just going to take a damp brush. I dipped it in the water, kind of dab some of it off. And the little white area here, it's not truly white in the picture. It's just a lot lighter. So I'm just going to kind of disturb some of the paint and kind of go over that white area to kind of knock some of that brightness off. Because it's lighter, but it's not completely white. It's just the light. I think it's the light shining through. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm just softening it up. And then we've got some shadows under the edge of this stool here, and then on that brace. Damp brush, let's soften the edges there. One a little darker here for the shadow. Damp brush, smooth that edge. A little darker here too. Damp brush, smooth it just a little. Oh, the stool looks so pretty. Okay, let's let that dry, and we can work on the top part here. So I'm going to mix some sap green. Oops, I dipped into phthalo. I'm going to pick up a little bit of this brown here and darken my green with it. Let's pull in some of that yellow from before. Now I'm just going to go in here and just start tapping in some of the green. I don't want to go over my yellow in some places. I want to make sure the yellow is still visible. This is a size 8 pointed round. I really like the point it has on it. Oops, too much there. Let's dab it up. I want it a little bit lighter. This is where it's going to get kind of confusing because it's just so much green. So I'm just going in with a mid-tone green, and then I will add some darks later. I'm not worried too much about being super precise because it's going to read like a vase of flowers and greenery. See, it already looks like a vase. Trying to do a real fine line here. And then I'm just dropping in some leaves. This is Diane being really loose and not super precise, which is so out of character for me. Now there are a couple of places in this glass right here and over here and over here that really need to stay light. So I am not going to use masking fluid. I'm just going to try to avoid it. Okay, while all this is drying, I'm going to work on the flowers. Got some Scarlet Lake here. I'm going to add some yellow to it to make kind of a pretty orange. And I'm placing it right over the center of the flowers that already had yellow on it. And this is some alizarin crimson. I'm going to add some Scarlet Lake to it. And just kind of loosely paint these flowers. The center is going to just blend in, but that's okay. Take a damp brush and just start lifting some of the petals here, especially around the center. That pop of red just really looks pretty in there. Okay, this darker green here. Let's come in and add some darker values. Gonna add a little more neutral tint. Sap green. See how dark that is. Let's add a little bit of our red in there. That'll make it darker. Okay, now let's add some darker values to the leaves. I think they're pretty much dry. I'm just looking at the reference photo and I'm looking for the darker values. And these little stems here, I'm just doing little dabs of the darker green, just wherever the green is, just to give it a different value. I think all things should have 3 values, a medium, a dark, and a light. So that's what I'm trying to do. And look how loose I am. That's so unlike me. I want it pretty dark around the flowers so that they pop. Just gonna kind of dab these edges here. Okay, let's let that dry. Okay, it's pretty much dry. So I'm just going to lift up the center of the flower here, just with a damp brush, just do a little bit of scrubbing, and it will get down to that lightest value. There, we have our centers back. I'm going to drop in just a little bit more of the color we mixed for that. I want it kind of bright. Now I've got to let that dry before I add any more to the flowers. Okay, so on this stool down here, it's lighter up here on the top than on the side. And right now it kind of looks like it's all the same color. So I'm just going to take my brush. It's damp. And I'm just going to scrub a little here on the top of the stool to make it lighter. And then dab it up. And then I'm just kind of reinforcing that this is darker here. Okay, I think that's good enough. Okay, when you look at this, you see some real light bluish green color there at the bottom of the glass and at the little stands, whatever that is, the little knob things down there. So I'm going to use a little phthalo blue mixed with just a tad of phthalo green. Because at the bottom of this vase, you got that bright color there. And then it's also on the little stands, little glass knob things here at the bottom. Damp brush, I'm going to just kind of dab that in. I've got some of this watered down greenish color over here, very watered down. So at the very base here, just put a little bit in there. Dab my brush and just kind of smear it around. I want it very light. Now where the light reflection of the glass here, I've got a damp brush, I'm just going to kind of smooth around those edges. It'll still read white. I kind of lost it right there. Lost my white highlight, but that's okay. We can scrub it out later. Needed some more green here in the bottom. It was looking all gray and mucky. Okay, the red is still wet there. So now I'm going to take a real tiny brush because I just want to make some little dots. You look at these flowers here and it looks like kind of a reddish brown little dots. So whenever I think reddish brown, I think burnt sienna. In fact, I'll get some of that red in there. And then I'm just looking at the reference photo, and wherever those little yellow flowers are, there's just these little dots. And see how that just kind of brings those flowers to life. And that's why I didn't really draw too much detail for those stems, because I knew I was just going to wing it. And some of the leaves here on this stem have a little bit of that color too. So I'm just dabbing some dots. Okay, we need to let it dry so I can now do some negative painting for the flowers. Okay, this part is dry down here, so these little knobby things, I'm going to kind of tone them down some, because it's not all. I'm just making some dabs of this darker color. Okay, the flowers are dry, so I'm going to mix alizarin crimson with some of this sap green to get a really dark, dark, dark red. And I'm just going to look at the reference photo and kind of see my outline there, and then just go around the petals. It's kind of hard to see where they are. I'll take a damp brush and just kind of soften all those edges. I'll dab a little bit of it up. It's a little dark. It will leave, yeah, that's good. got some straight Scarlet Lake. I really want that center to be brighter. And a good way of making it really bright is to add a little bit of the lemon yellow. There we go. Just drop it in while it's wet. Let it blend with the Scarlet Lake. Okay, I'm going to let all this dry and see what else I need to do. Okay, I see some areas that need some cleaning up. So I've got this angular shader brush. You could use a flat brush, any kind of stiff brush here. I've got it damp, and I'm going to come in here and lighten up my highlight here. Just scrub it a little and then dab it. Yeah, that needs to be brighter. And then I missed this spot over here, painted right over it. So I'm just going to lighten it up a bit. And then right here along the edge, just scrub and dab. Let's see. I'm going to add some lemon yellow here in different places for these leaves because they're kind of blah. They need some warmth. So I'm just dropping in some lemon yellow here and there just to add some. Oh yeah, that works. The leaves were just too flat. Yellow will liven it up. Well, too much yellow there. Dab it up. See if I can scrub a little bit more here. This brush is too soft. There we go. Okay, it's missing some darker values here at the base where the flowers are going into the vase. So I'm just dropping in some of this darker value and then a damp brush to kind of smear it around. Some more yellow here on the center of the flowers. Okay, I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to lift a little bit here to give some definition to some of the stems coming up. Okay, it's dry. Now I'm going to do some lifting of some of these stems. I've got a 1/4-inch chisel blender. It's pretty stiff. And I'm just going to scrub a little and make some stems. It's like magic. Just scrub a little. And lift. And you have stems. Okay, I'm going to let all this settle into my brain and see if there's anything else I need to add. Okay, I put a mat around it and I think it is done. I really like how the vase turned out with a little bit of yellow, the blue at the bottom, the little phthalo blue and green mixed to match what was going on in the reference photo. Love the flowers, love the yellow flowers. They really, really start to pop when I added the little burnt sienna dots to it. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing how you interpret this tutorial and this reference photo. This was looser than I normally do. I really tried hard to loosen it up and not be so precise. And it worked. From across the room, it looks like a vase of flowers and greenery sitting on a stool. So I'm calling it a success. Thank you so much for being a subscriber. Okay, I said I was done. I am not. So I wanted to add a little bit of highlight to the edges of the petals. And I've got this Jelly Roll pen. It's like this neon orange. So I'm just making little bitty dabs here and there, and then taking a damp brush and kind of smoothing it out so that it's not like slapping me in the face with bright orange. And that really brings out the edges of the flowers. You can see here it's just got a little bit of the bright color around each petal. So using a fun little Jelly Roll pen, it really helped it. Okay, now I'm done.